They mocked her for being too big, until the cowboy lifted her and said, "You're perfect to me." The twin suns were beginning to set, casting a soft golden light over the buildings and metal walkways. She felt a familiar twinge of unease as the wind from the canyon below rustled her long hair. She had been working on the colony for 6 months now, but she still felt out of place. It wasn't that the colony was hostile. Most of the humans were polite enough, and the alien workers rarely paid much attention to her. But being tall, strong, and different made her a target for quiet mockery. "Too big," they whispered. "She doesn't fit here." The words weren't always said aloud, but Leela could feel the judgment in the sideways glances and the small smirks. She sighed, gripping her toolkit tightly. Her job was simple in theory: help maintain the colony's energy reactor. But in practice, it required lifting and moving heavy components that no one else could handle. And every time she tried to do it, someone would scoff. "Watch out, Leela, don't hurt yourself again." She turned to see Myra, a human engineer barely half her size, shaking her head. Myra's tone wasn't cruel, but the message was clear: Leela didn't belong. "I'm fine," Leela said, forcing a smile. "I've done this 100 times before." Myra rolled her eyes but didn't argue further. Leela shook her head and went back to the reactor platform. She tried not to think about how much easier her life might be if she weren't so big, so strong, so different. But that thought always returned, like a shadow she could never shake. The reactor hummed softly, a deep vibration that could be felt through the metal floor. Leela crouched beside the massive energy conduits, checking for signs of wear. Something didn't feel right. The hum was slightly off, an irregular vibration that made her stomach twist. She frowned and ran her fingers along the outer casing of a conduit. A faint crack. Her heart skipped a beat. She had seen the colony's reactor fail before, during a training simulation, and it had been catastrophic. If a real failure happened, the colony could lose power for weeks, or worse, the entire docking platform could collapse. Leela straightened up and took a deep breath. She needed to report it, but she hesitated. Every time she had tried to speak up in the past, someone had brushed her off. "Leela," a voice called. She looked up to see Corin, the reactor supervisor. "Everything okay down there?" She hesitated, then said, "I think there's a crack forming in the conduit. It might get worse if we don't fix it soon." Corin's face twisted into an expression she had come to expect: mild disbelief, quickly hidden by politeness. "Are you sure? Maybe it's just a surface scratch." "I'm positive," Leela said, holding up her hand. "It's deep enough that it could compromise the entire system if we ignore it." Corin sighed, glanced around at the other engineers, and finally nodded. "All right, we'll send a team down to check it. Thanks for noticing, Leela." She wanted to feel proud, but instead she felt small. They thanked her politely, but she could see their eyes flicker with doubt. "Too big, too clumsy, too strong to fit in," the colony seemed to say. She leaned against the railing and watched the horizon. The twin suns were almost gone, leaving only streaks of orange and violet. Somewhere out there, beyond the mountains, were worlds full of humans who belonged, humans who were respected. She felt a pang of longing. A sudden roar of engines pulled her attention back to the docking bay. A ship unlike any she had seen landed with a cloud of dust and sparks. It was a sleek, silver craft, with curved wings that shimmered in the fading light. The hatch opened, and a tall man with a wide-brimmed hat stepped out. He moved with confidence, boots thudding against the metal platform. Even from a distance, Leela could feel his presence. It was the kind of presence that made people stop talking and look. He glanced around and his eyes landed on her. "New around here," he called, his voice carrying easily over the platform. "Yes," she said cautiously. The man tipped his hat, smiling. "Name's Jax. I'm here to check out the colony's shipping logs and do a little engineering help." Leela raised an eyebrow. Most people who arrived at Aurora 7 were bureaucrats or inspectors, not hands-on engineers. But there was something about Jax that felt different. He wasn't judging her. "You're in luck," she said, a spark of hope igniting. "I'm working on the reactor right now. Might be something you can help with," Jax grinned. "Lead the way, partner." As they walked toward the reactor, Leela felt her chest tighten, not with fear, but with something she hadn't felt in a long time: excitement. Maybe, just maybe, someone could see her for what she was, not what she was. Inside the reactor room, the air was thick with heat and the hum of machinery. Leela led Jax to the conduit she had found. "See this," she said, pointing. "The crack's growing. If we don't stabilize it, it could cause a full shutdown or worse." Jax crouched beside the conduit, examining it closely. He ran his fingers along the metal, nodding. "You're right. That's a serious problem. How do you usually handle this?" "I've been trying to move the reinforcement modules into place, but they're too heavy for most people. I can do it, but it takes time." Jax's eyes sparkled with interest. "Mind if I give it a try?" Before she could answer, he lifted one of the massive modules effortlessly, moving it into position with a precision that made Leela's jaw drop. She blinked. You're kidding me. How did you?" "Years of moving heavy stuff plus a little bit of know-how," Jax said casually, setting the module down. "And hey, your size isn't a problem. It's an advantage. You've got the reach and strength I can only dream of." Leela felt her cheeks heat up. No one had ever said that to her. Not the supervisors, not the engineers, not even her own family. She had always felt like a misfit because of her size, but here was someone who saw it as a gift. For the first time in months, Leela smiled, truly smiled. And it wasn't just polite or forced, it was real. "Let's get to work," Jax said, clapping his hands. "I think together we can fix this before it becomes a real problem." As they worked side by side, Leela realized something else. Maybe it wasn't about fitting in with the colony or changing herself to meet others' expectations. Maybe it was about finding people who valued what made her different. Hours passed as they reinforced the reactor, module by module. Sparks flew, alarms beeped, and sweat poured down her face, but Leela didn't care. With Jax's help, her strength and size were no longer liabilities. They were essential. When the last module clicked into place, the reactor's hum returned to its normal, steady rhythm. Leela stepped back, breathing heavily, and let out a laugh of relief. "You did it," Jax said, smiling. "We did it." Leela felt a warmth spread through her chest, not just from the work, not just from the success, but from being seen, recognized, and appreciated. As they exited the reactor room, she looked at Jax and said softly, "Thank you. I didn't think anyone would ever see me like that." Jax tipped his hat again, with a grin that made her heart skip a beat. "Hey, sometimes it takes the right person to see what's been right in front of you all along." For the first time in months, Leela didn't feel like the outsider. She felt like she belonged. And something told her that this was only the beginning of an adventure that could change everything, not just for her, but for the entire colony. The twin suns had fully set, leaving a sky full of stars. Leela gazed upward, her heart pounding with hope. Somewhere out there, humans like her were proving that strength, courage, and determination could overcome any doubt. And she was ready to show them all what she was capable of. The next morning, the colony was alive with activity. Aurora 7's twin suns rose slowly, painting the metal walkways with soft gold light. Leela stood near the reactor platform, checking her tools and reviewing the work from yesterday. The reactor hummed steadily, reassuringly, but she knew the crack in the conduit wasn't the only challenge. Whispers followed her as she walked. The engineers were curious about the new arrival. Most of the colony's humans had never seen someone like Jax before. He had the easy confidence of a person who had lived through danger and come out smiling. He didn't just walk, he moved with purpose, and every movement seemed effortless. Leela felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. Yesterday, he had lifted a module that she had struggled with for weeks without breaking a sweat. Today, she would see if he could handle the next challenge. "Morning, Leela," a familiar voice called. It was Myra who was hovering nearby, notebook in hand. "He's still around." "Yes," Leela said, trying to sound calm, "and he's actually helpful." Myra blinked, surprised. "Really? You mean he doesn't just brag and take over?" "Not at all," Leela said. "He wants to work with me, not replace me." Before Myra could respond, Jax appeared at the entrance of the platform, hat tilted at a rakish angle. "Ready for round two?" he asked with a grin. Leela laughed softly. "I hope you are. Today's task is moving the secondary stabilizer into place. It's heavier than yesterday's module and it needs precise positioning." Jax's grin widened. "Heavy? Precise? Sounds like a good morning to me." As they approached the storage bay where the stabilizer was kept, Leela's stomach tightened. Moving this module alone was risky. Not impossible, but risky. Even the strongest engineers sometimes failed. And if it fell, the colony could be set back days, maybe weeks. "Here it is," Leela said, gesturing to the enormous metal piece. It gleamed under the morning light, its edges sharp and precise. Jax studied it carefully. "Looks heavy, but doable." He glanced at her. "I trust you know how to handle it." "I do," Leela said, "but I could use your help. We'll need to lift it together and guide it into the reactor." They positioned themselves carefully, hands gripping the stabilizer. Leela counted down and together they lifted it. Jax's strength was impressive, but it was his steadiness that amazed her. Unlike the colony's other engineers, he didn't panic or rush. Every movement was calculated. "Careful near the conduits," Leela warned. "Even a slight bump could damage the system." Jax nodded. "I've got it." Step by step, they moved the stabilizer toward the reactor. Sparks flew when the module brushed against a support beam and Leela's heart jumped. But Jax steadied it, holding it in place with ease. "You're really good at this," Leela said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I didn't think anyone could handle a piece like this so smoothly." Jax shrugged. "Years of practice. You'd be surprised what humans can do when they put their mind to it." Leela smiled. For the first time she felt recognized. Not mocked, not dismissed, recognized. The colony workers had started gathering near the platform, watching silently. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some of the aliens tilted their heads curiously, while the human engineers exchanged skeptical glances. "Too big, too awkward," someone muttered. But the words seemed weaker now. Leela ignored them and focused on the task. Together, she and Jax positioned the stabilizer above the conduits. The module was heavy and her arms trembled slightly, but Jax's steady hands made the process smooth. "On three," Leela said. "1, 2, 3. They gently lowered the stabilizer into its slot. It clicked perfectly into place. Leela let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "We did it," she said, a small smile spreading across her face. "You did most of it," Jax said with a grin. "I just provided moral support and a little muscle." The workers around them started clapping quietly. Leela looked up, surprised. Some of the skeptics were nodding in approval. Even Myra smiled. "You see," Jax said, nudging her gently, "being big is a good thing sometimes." Leela laughed, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. It wasn't just the stabilizer that was heavy. Yesterday, and for months, she had carried the weight of feeling inadequate. But right now, with Jax by her side, she felt powerful and capable. Later that day, they took a break near the colony's central plaza. The twin suns were high, and the wind carried a faint scent of alien flowers from the surrounding canyons. Leela watched the workers bustling about, feeling a sense of pride in her heart. "You know," Jax said, leaning against the railing, "you're really something. Most people would have given up after being mocked for so long, but you didn't, you just kept going." Leela looked down at her hands. "I guess I didn't have a choice. The colony needs this reactor running, and well, I like being useful." Jax nodded. "That's the thing about humans. You might get mocked or doubted, but your determination, your grit, it always shows in the end. You surprise everyone, including yourself." For a moment, Leela felt shy under his gaze. It wasn't romantic, it was something different. Recognition. Respect, acceptance. Thanks, she said softly. I've never had anyone say that before. You will, Jax replied, and you'll see it matters more than you think. As the day progressed, they returned to the reactor to run final checks. Suddenly, an alarm beeped sharply and red lights flashed across the control panels. What now? Leela muttered, hurrying to the console. Jax followed, his expression calm. Let's see what we're dealing with. The system displayed a minor energy fluctuation in a secondary conduit. Nothing critical but enough to cause concern if ignored. Leela frowned. It's probably nothing, she said, but deep down she knew better. We can fix it, Jax said confidently. We just need to stay calm and work together. Leela nodded, grateful for his presence. Alone, she might have panicked, but with Jax she felt capable of facing anything. They worked methodically, adjusting settings, reinforcing weak points, and carefully monitoring the energy flow. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the platform. Sweat ran down Leela's forehead, and her arms ached from holding the stabilizer earlier, but she pushed through. Finally, after hours of careful adjustments, the alarm stopped. The reactor hummed smoothly once again. We did it, Leela said, exhaling deeply. It's stable. Jax smiled, clapping her on the back. You did it. I just followed your lead. For the first time, Leela felt the full weight of pride, not just because the reactor was safe, but because she had proved herself. She had taken her size, her strength, her uniqueness, and turned it into an advantage. The crowd of onlookers had started to disperse, but a few stayed behind, nodding in quiet respect. Even the skeptical engineers looked impressed. You know, Jax said as they walked back to the plaza, the colony is going to talk about this for a long time. They'll remember how you handled the reactor. Leela smiled. Maybe being too big isn't so bad after all, Jax grinned. Exactly. Sometimes being different is the best thing you can be. That evening, as the sun set in streaks of orange and violet, Leela sat near the edge of the docking platform, watching the stars appear. Jax sat beside her, quiet but present. She felt a sense of calm she hadn't known in months. For the first time, she felt like she belonged. Hey, Jax said, nudging her gently, don't let anyone make you feel small again. Not here, not anywhere. I won't, she said softly, her gaze fixed on the stars. The colony was still a place of challenges and skeptics, but now she knew something crucial. Her size, her strength, and her determination weren't flaws. They were her power. And with someone like Jax by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. As night fell over Aurora 7, the twin moons rose, casting a soft silver light. Leela knew this was only the beginning. The frontier was full of unknowns, and the colony still had many obstacles to overcome. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She was strong. She was capable, and she was exactly where she belonged. The morning on Aurora 7 began with a soft, golden glow. The twin suns climbed slowly, reflecting off the metal surfaces of the colony. Leela stepped out of her small quarters, feeling the familiar weight of her toolkit on her shoulder. Today was different. Yesterday, with Jax's help, she had stabilized the main reactor. The colony was buzzing about it, but there were still whispers. Some engineers nodded with respect, but others murmured doubts, saying she had only succeeded because of Jax's strength. Leela ignored them, though the words still stung. She arrived at the reactor platform to find Jax already waiting. He was leaning casually against the railing, hat tilted, watching the sunrise. Morning, he said, grinning, ready to face round 3. Round 3, Leela raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Secondary conduits, Jax replied. There's a subtle fluctuation in the energy flow. Could be minor, could be serious. I figure we tackle it before anyone else even notices. Leela nodded. She respected his initiative, even if some of the colony's senior engineers might frown. Let's do it. Inside the reactor room, the hum of the energy system was steady. But as Leela approached the secondary conduits, she noticed something alarming. The vibrations were irregular, more pronounced than she had expected. If they worsened, it could disrupt the entire colony's energy grid. This isn't minor, Leela said, frowning. If this continues, the colony could experience blackouts or worse. Jax examined the conduits closely. You're right, but we can fix it together. The first challenge was moving a series of heavy stabilizers into precise positions. Yesterday, she had handled one module with Jax's help, but today's task required several, each larger and heavier than the last. Leela could lift them on her own, but precision was critical, and the pressure of failure weighed heavily. As they began lifting the first module, whispers spread across the observation deck. Engineers, humans, and aliens alike watched silently. Leela could feel their eyes, some skeptical, some curious, but she refused to let it distract her. Jax steadied the module as they moved it into position. "You've got this," he said, his voice calm. "Your size, your strength, use them, don't fight it." Leela focused. Step by step, she guided the stabilizer into place, her arms straining but her determination unwavering. The module clicked securely. She exhaled, feeling a small thrill of pride. "See," Jax said with a grin. "Perfect." They continued with the next stabilizer. This one was heavier, and the placement required careful alignment with the reactor conduits. Leela's muscles ached, and sweat ran down her face, but she persisted. Every small movement, every careful adjustment, reminded her of why her size and strength were assets, not flaws. "Almost there," Jax said. "We just need to guide it into the final slot." The last stabilizer was the largest of all. Its edges gleamed under the overhead lights, and Leela's stomach tightened at the thought of moving it alone. But she didn't have to. Jax positioned himself beside her, matching her movements with steady hands. Together, they lifted the massive module. The strain was intense, and Leela felt her arms trembling, but Jax's presence gave her confidence. Slowly, carefully, they maneuvered it into place. A loud click echoed through the reactor room as the stabilizer locked securely. The hum of the energy system shifted, becoming steady once again. Leela's chest swelled with relief and pride. "We did it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You did it," Jax corrected gently, smiling. "I just helped." For the first time, the observation deck erupted in applause. Engineers and aliens alike nodded in approval. Even the skeptics had to admit that Leela's skill and determination had saved the day. But their victory was short-lived. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the control panels. A secondary conduit was showing unexpected pressure spikes. Leela's stomach sank. "Not again," she muttered. Jack stepped beside her, calm as ever. "We can handle this. One problem at a time." They examined the system, tracing the source of the fluctuation. The conduit was beginning to warp slightly under pressure. If ignored, it could lead to a cascade failure affecting the entire colony. "We need a stabilizing rig," Leela said. "But it's too heavy to lift alone, and it needs precise placement to avoid damaging the conduits." Jax nodded. "Then we lift it together. You guide, I support. We're a team." They positioned themselves, hands gripping the massive rig. Leela felt the familiar strain in her arms, but also a surge of determination. She wasn't just lifting metal, she was lifting the colony's future. Step by step, they moved the rig toward the damaged conduit. Sparks flew when it brushed against a support beam, and Leela's heart leapt. But Jack steadied it, keeping the module balanced. "Careful, careful," she murmured, guiding the rig. Finally, they aligned it perfectly. Leela adjusted her grip, making small tweaks to ensure precise placement. Jax supported the weight, his steady presence giving her confidence. The rig clicked into place. The conduit stabilized and the alarm ceased. The reactor's hum returned to a steady rhythm. Leela sank to her knees, exhausted but exhilarated. We did it," she said, breathless. Jax crouched beside her, grinning. "You did it. I just provided backup." For the first time in her life, Leela felt the full weight of accomplishment. Not just because she had stabilized the reactor, but because she had proven to herself and to the colony that her size, strength, and determination were valuable. The onlookers began to clap again, louder this time. Even Myra, who had been skeptical, approached with a smile. I didn't believe you could do it," she admitted. "But you were amazing." Leela smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. "Thanks," she said softly. Jax patted her shoulder. "You've got something special, Leela. Most people would give up after being doubted, but not you. You keep going, you adapt. You rise to the challenge." She looked down at her hands, thinking of all the times she had been mocked for being too big. Now, that very trait had allowed her to succeed where others might have failed. Later, in the central plaza, Leela and Jax walked among the colony workers. The mood had shifted. Whispers of doubt had been replaced by admiration. People nodded as she passed. Even the aliens tilted their heads in acknowledgement, a rare sign of respect in a species often indifferent to humans. "You see that?" Jax asked, gesturing at the workers. "They're starting to notice. You're changing how they see humans and how they see themselves." Leela laughed softly. "Maybe being different isn't so bad after all." "Exactly," Jax said, tipping his hat. "Sometimes what makes you different is exactly what makes you great." As the suns dipped toward the horizon, Leela felt a deep sense of belonging. The colony was still a place of challenges, but now she knew she could face them. With her strength, her size, and her determination, and with Jax by her side, she was ready to take on anything. That night, as she gazed at the stars above Aurora 7, Leela reflected on what had changed. She wasn't just a worker in the colony anymore. She was a problem solver, a protector, someone who could rise to any challenge. Her size, once a source of shame, was now her greatest strength. Jax leaned beside her, silent but steady. "You've done more than stabilize the reactor today," he said softly. "You've shown everyone that humans are capable of amazing things." Leela smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "I just hope I can keep proving it." "You will," Jax said confidently, "and I'll be here to help." As the twin moons rose over the colony, their silver light reflecting off the metal walkways, Leela felt a surge of hope. The frontier was full of unknowns, but for the first time she wasn't afraid. She was strong, capable, and ready. And somewhere deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning of her story, and the story of humans on Aurora 7. The colony had seen her strength. The colony had seen her determination. And slowly, they were beginning to see the power of humanity itself. The morning on Aurora 7 was calm and quiet. The twin suns shone gently over the colony, reflecting off the metal walkways and casting long shadows across the buildings. For once, Leela didn't feel anxious. Instead, she felt a quiet anticipation. Yesterday had been intense. She had stabilized the reactor, working alongside Jax to move the heavy stabilizers and secure the conduits. The colony had begun to notice her strength, her determination, and her ability to solve problems others couldn't. But recognition wasn't just about completing tasks, it was about being seen. As Leela walked toward the central plaza, she noticed small changes. Engineers who had whispered doubts before now nodded respectfully as she passed. Even Myra, who had been hesitant to accept her skills, smiled warmly. Leela felt a small thrill of pride. She approached the plaza where the colony had gathered for the morning briefing. Corin, the reactor supervisor, stood on the platform addressing the crowd. "Today," Corin began, "we recognize the engineers who made yesterday's critical repair possible." He paused, looking directly at Leela. "Especially those who took initiative and showed exceptional skill and courage." Leela's heart skipped a beat. All eyes turned toward her. Some faces were friendly, others skeptical, but for the first time she felt ready to face them all. "Leela," Corin continued, "your work with the reactor's stabilizers prevented a potential disaster. Your strength, precision, and determination were essential. You've earned the respect of this colony." A murmur of approval swept through the crowd. Leela felt warmth spread through her chest. After months of being mocked for her size, she was finally being recognized, not as a misfit but as someone indispensable. Jack stepped forward, tipping his hat with a wide grin. "I knew she was capable," he said loudly, making the crowd chuckle. "But even I'm impressed by how she handled the job. She didn't just lift heavy stuff, she saved the colony." Leela felt her cheeks flush. She wasn't used to compliments, especially not ones that acknowledged her true abilities. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice steady despite the crowd watching her. The rest of the day was filled with small acknowledgments. Engineers came up to her, thanking her for her work and asking for advice. Even the aliens in the colony, normally indifferent to human accomplishments, gave her nods of approval and curious glances. By mid-afternoon, Leela and Jax had returned to the reactor to perform final checks. Everything hummed smoothly, the energy flowing evenly through the conduits. For the first time in months, Leela felt relaxed and confident in her abilities. "You've really changed things here," Jax said as they walked along the platform. "People are seeing what humans can do when they put their minds and hearts into it." "I hope so," Leela replied. "It feels good to be appreciated for what I am, not judged for what I'm not." Jack smiled. "That's the thing about humans. You might be underestimated at first, but when you rise to the challenge, people notice. And once they do, they respect you." The sun was beginning to set as they continued their walk. The colony glowed in the golden light, and the distant mountains shimmered in the twin sunlight. Leela felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. She had always struggled to fit in because of her size, her strength, and her differences. But now she realized those traits were her greatest strengths. "Do you ever get tired of proving yourself?" she asked Jax. "Not really," he said, chuckling. "Every challenge is an opportunity, and when you face it head-on, people see the best in you. That's what matters." Leela nodded thoughtfully. She had spent so long hiding, trying to be smaller, weaker, and less noticeable. But now she understood that her true power came from embracing who she was and using it to help others. Later in the evening, the colony held a small celebration in the central plaza. Lanterns were strung between buildings, casting soft light across the crowd. Food and drink were offered to all, and for the first time, Leela felt completely included. Jack stayed by her side, helping her navigate through the crowd and introducing her to people who wanted to thank her. She was overwhelmed by the genuine gratitude and respect she received. "You've really made a difference," an engineer said, shaking her hand. "The colony would have been in trouble without you." "I just did what I could," Leela replied, smiling. "I'm glad it helped." But as the night went on, Leela realized something important. Recognition wasn't just about words or applause. It was about seeing herself in a new way. She had been mocked for being too big, but that very trait had allowed her to succeed when others might have failed. "You know," Jack said quietly as they stepped away from the crowd, "you've changed more than just the reactor. You've changed how people see humans and how they see themselves." Leela looked at him, surprised. "How do you mean?" "Humans are underestimated in this colony. People think you're fragile or limited, but you've shown them the truth. Humans are strong, capable, and adaptable. They just need to see it for themselves." Leela smiled. She realized he was right. Her size, her strength, her courage, they weren't flaws. They were her greatest gifts, and she had proven their value not just to herself but to the entire colony. As the twin moons rose over Aurora 7, their silver light reflecting on the metal walkways, Leela felt a sense of calm and purpose. She wasn't just a worker anymore. She was a protector, a problem solver, and someone who could rise to any challenge. Later that night, Jax and Leela sat near the edge of the docking platform, watching the stars appear in the clear sky. "You know," Jax said, "most people go through life being underestimated, but it's those who embrace their strengths who make the real difference." "I've learned that now," Leela said softly. "I can't control what people think, but I can control what I do, and I won't hide anymore." Jax smiled. "That's the spirit. You've got something special, Leela. People will remember what you've done here for a long time." Leela looked out over the colony. Lights twinkled in the distance and the buildings reflected the silver moonlight. For the first time, she felt truly proud. She had faced doubt, skepticism, and mockery, and she had risen above it. She had shown not just the colony but herself, what humans were capable of. And she knew there were more challenges ahead. The frontier was full of unknowns. The colony would continue to face difficulties, new systems would require fixing, and unexpected problems would arise. But now she felt ready, stronger, capable, and confident that she could rise to any challenge. Jax leaned back, looking at the moons. "You've done more than fix a reactor," he said. "You've shown the colony what humans can do. That's something they won't forget." Leela smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. "And I won't forget it either. I've learned that being different isn't a weakness, it's a strength. And I'm ready to show everyone what I can do." For the first time, Leela didn't feel like the outsider. She felt like she belonged. She had proven herself to the colony, and more importantly, she had proven herself to herself. The twin moons rose higher, casting soft light across Aurora 7. Leela felt a quiet determination settle in her heart. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new problems to solve, and new opportunities to show the strength of humanity. And she would face them head-on just as she had faced yesterday, because she was strong, she was capable, and she was ready to lead. Aurora 7's twin suns rose slowly, casting soft golden light across the colony. For the first time, Leela felt a calm sense of purpose as she stepped onto the metal walkway leading to the reactor. The colony had begun to see her differently. Whispers of doubt had turned into nods of respect. Children waved as she passed, and even some of the alien workers offered friendly glances. She smiled quietly to herself. Beside her, Jax walked with his usual casual confidence, tipping his hat at those they passed. "Looks like you've made quite an impression," he said, grinning. "I hope so," Leela replied. "It feels good to be appreciated for what I am." Jax nodded. "You're more than appreciated, you've inspired them. Humans like you remind everyone that strength, courage, and determination aren't just words, they're actions." Leela felt warmth spread through her chest. She had faced so many challenges, been underestimated, mocked, and doubted. But all of that had led her here, to this moment where she finally felt seen for who she truly was. Today, however, was not a day for rest. Reports had come in from the colony's outer perimeter. An unexpected surge in energy readings suggested that one of the new solar arrays was unstable. If left unchecked, it could damage the colony's power grid. "We'll need to move quickly," Jax said, already scanning the control panels. "Think you're ready for another challenge?" Leela straightened, gripping her toolkit. "I've never been more ready." Together, they made their way to the outer perimeter. The terrain was rugged, with jagged metal platforms stretching across the cliffs. Aurora 7's wind gusted sharply, and Leela had to steady herself against the handrails. She felt alive, alert, focused, and confident. At the site, they saw the problem. A massive solar array had partially collapsed due to a misaligned stabilizer. The array was crucial for the colony's power supply, and the task of fixing it was enormous. The panels were heavy, delicate, and required precise handling. Leela glanced at Jax. "We can do this, we just have to take it step by step." Jax nodded. "I've got your back. Let's show them what humans can do." They approached the first panel. Leela's size allowed her to reach areas others couldn't, lifting the heavy module with ease. Jax assisted with balance and precision, guiding it carefully into its proper position. Sparks flew as the module clicked into place, but the system remained stable. The colony workers gathered to watch, murmuring among themselves. Some of the skeptics were present, curious to see if she could handle this even more challenging task. Leela didn't notice their eyes. Her focus was entirely on the work ahead. Step by step, module by module, they secured the solar array. Leela's muscles ached, her arms trembled, and sweat poured down her face, but she pushed forward. She felt strong, not just physically but mentally. Every lift, every adjustment reminded her why she had been mocked in the past: her size, her strength, her determination. But now these traits were celebrated. "Careful with that last panel," Jax warned. "It needs to fit perfectly, or the whole array could be off balance." Leela adjusted her grip, aligning the module with precise movements. Jax steadied it from the side. Together they clicked it into place. The hum of the solar array stabilized and the power grid readings returned to normal. Leela stepped back, breathing heavily. She had done it. They had done it. The colony's energy system was safe. "Perfect," Jax said, smiling broadly. "You're unstoppable." The crowd erupted in applause. Engineers, humans, and aliens alike cheered. Children waved enthusiastically. Leela felt a surge of pride. Not only had she saved the colony's energy system, but she had proved her worth in every way possible. Later, as they walked back toward the central plaza, Jax nudged her gently. "You know, you've done more than fix systems. You've shown everyone what humans can do when they put their hearts and minds into it. That's something they won't forget." Leela smiled. "I guess being too big wasn't a flaw after all. It was a gift." "Exactly," Jax said. "Sometimes the thing that makes people doubt you is the very thing that makes you extraordinary." As they approached the plaza, Corin and the Colony Council were waiting. Corin stepped forward, his expression serious but kind. "Leela, Jax," he said, "today you've done something remarkable. Not only did you stabilize the solar array, but you also inspired the colony. You've shown us what humans are capable of: courage, strength, and determination." "We are grateful." Leela felt a lump in her throat. The words meant more than she could express. She had spent so long feeling out of place, doubted for her size, her strength, and her differences. But now she was being celebrated. "Thank you," she said softly. I just did what I could." "You did more than that," Corin replied. "You proved that being different isn't a weakness, it's a strength. And that strength can save lives and inspire people." The crowd cheered again. Leela looked around, feeling a profound sense of belonging. She had found her place, not by shrinking herself to fit in, but by embracing her uniqueness. Later that evening, Leela and Jack stood on the edge of the docking platform, gazing at the stars. The twin moons of Aurora 7 cast a silver glow, and the colony shimmered below them. "You've changed a lot in a short time," Jack said quietly. "Not just the colony, but yourself too." Leela nodded. "I've learned that being strong and different isn't something to hide. It's something to embrace. And with the right people around, I can do anything." Jack smiled. "And I'll be there with you. Humanity is full of surprises, Leela, and so are you. Together, we can tackle anything this frontier throws at us." For the first time, Leela felt a sense of complete confidence. She wasn't just part of the colony. She was a symbol of human ingenuity and courage. Her size, strength, and determination were no longer sources of shame. They were celebrated qualities that inspired others. Days turned into weeks, and Leela continued to work alongside Jax. They repaired systems, reinforced structures, and trained new recruits. Each day, the colony grew stronger, not just in infrastructure but in spirit. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were respected, admired, and relied upon. One afternoon, as they completed a repair on the outer habitat, Leela paused to lift a heavy support beam into place. Jax watched her with admiration. "You're incredible," he said. "Every day, you prove how capable humans can be." Leela smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "Thanks, Jax. It's easier when someone believes in you." He tipped his hat, grinning. "You don't need me to believe in you, but I'm glad I do." As the colony gathered to celebrate their progress, Leela realized how far she had come. She had faced doubt, skepticism, and mockery. She had been underestimated for her size, her strength, and her differences. But now she had proven herself. And in doing so, she had raised humanity's reputation on this frontier world. That night, Leela and Jack stood on the edge of the docking platform, watching the twin moons rise. You know, Jack said, people will tell stories about today, about you, about humans who rise to challenges no one else can handle. Leela looked at him, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. I hope so, but I also hope they remember that it's not just about strength, it's about courage, determination, and heart. Jax nodded. Exactly, and you have all three in abundance. For the first time, Leela felt truly proud. She had embraced her uniqueness, harnessed her strength, and shown the colony and herself what humans were capable of. The frontier was vast, full of unknown dangers and opportunities, but she no longer feared it because she was strong. She was capable. She was human. And humanity, big and bold, was unstoppable. Jax nudged her gently, smiling. You're perfect to me, he said softly, tipping his hat in the moonlight. Leela laughed softly, a sound full of joy and confidence. And to me, the frontier feels like home. Together they gazed at the stars above Aurora 7, ready to face whatever the universe had in store. Humans had risen, and so had Leela. The future was bright and full of possibilities.